Welcome everyone to Grid Live Wrap-Up. Joe here along with Ben and Kobe from the podium bench. We'll recap the Instacart 500 from Phoenix Raceway. First, we do want to acknowledge the passing of Murray Walker. Murray Walker, to many, is the voice of Formula One, known from 1978 to 2021, week after week, calling Formula One races every weekend. Best known for his Murrayism, including anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does. Most American fans rarely heard Murray Walker, but his passion for the sport still made it to American fans to hear. First time I heard Murray Walker's voice was playing Formula One, the PlayStation 1 game back in 1994. We encourage everyone to share their favorite moments of Murray Walker. We are thinking of him, his family, and everyone affected by the loss of Murray Walker. And of course, Murray still loved motorsports. We had a Formula One testing this weekend, and of course, the NASCAR Cup Series race, which we'll be discussing. That race won by Martin Truex Jr.
And Martin Truex Jr. took the lead from Joey Logano on the final restart and surprised everyone, especially with his car looking extremely well on the long runs, but the short runs, it didn't really seem like that was his strong suit today. However, he held off the field after the solid restart, and race winner MTJ never looked back. So here's my first question for you guys. Did Truex taking the win on the short run surprise you today?
First of all, before we get into the show, Joe, I want to echo your thoughts on Murray Walker and extend my condolences to his family and everybody in the Formula One community. He's one of the greatest, not just motorsports commentators of all time, but one of the best in all of sports. And certainly saddened to hear of his passing this weekend. In terms of Martin Truex Jr. winning the race today, you know, it was kind of a surprise to me that he was, you know, up front competing for the win in general. I think he was even admitted in his interviews after the race today and leading up to this weekend that Phoenix wasn't one of his better tracks. And it's been a while since we saw him get a victory in the Cup Series. But he found a way to do it with a car that he thought was better on long runs, even having a short run at the end, still found a way to pull it out. And it's got to be good momentum for Joe Gibbs Racing now, having two of their teams in victory lane already just 5 races into the year.
Two of their teams in victory lane, and of course that matches up Hendrick with two of their teams in victory lane as well. And you bring up a good point. I think a lot of people didn't anticipate Truex. They anticipated Bell, Kyle Busch, somebody else that had won there. Truex had never won there in 31 starts. Nobody picked him for pick or winner. So definitely I would agree with you on that. And I was surprised to see, I thought it was going to be Logano's race to win. Very confident that last caution flag didn't come out. We would be talking about Logano taking a win. So it definitely was a surprise seeing Truex take that win.
And here's Martin Truex Jr. answering Bob Pockers on Fox Sports about recovering from some damage in the boost by getting a victory today in Phoenix.
Well, that run right after that, it still wasn't great. And then it was the next pit stop, more adjustments on the car that it felt like, okay, now we've got something. But I really didn't know it was that good until I got up. We got really deep into that long run, and I think I got up to about 5th, and I could see the next couple of guys in front of me. And I'm like, dang, we came from like 17th or 18th on that restart. So that's when I knew it was pretty good.
And does this give you any sort of boost if you're in the Final Four when you come back in November?
Huge boost, huge confidence. I'll be honest with you, if we would have come here last year in the Final Four, I would have been not very confident because it's you know, last year we struggled here for some reason. It's never been our greatest track, I'll say that. It's always been just okay, and I've never come here with a really warm, fuzzy feeling that, you know, we're going to go there and win, or we're going to go there, you know, and be really, really strong lead laps. So that was definitely a nice surprise today, and really just hats off to all the guys for the hard work and you know, everybody that builds the cars and you know, puts in all the effort back at JGR and Toyota. So we took a huge swing at the car for this race. We knew, you know, what we've been doing here in the past few races wasn't good, and the car didn't do anything I needed to do. So we just went to work on it, and James and the guys did an awesome job with that. So really happy about it, and really happy you didn't ask me a retirement question today as well.
Yeah, and one thing that come out of that press conference was Martin Truex Jr. announced that he's going to be running the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race at Bristol Dirt in order to get some experience on that racetrack before the NASCAR Cup Series race. So definitely it's going to be very, very exciting to see Martin Truex Jr. racing in the Truck Series alongside his brother Ryan Truex. And yesterday we discussed the potential of Team Penske on Grid Live pre-race. Ryan Blaney won Stage 1, Joey Logano won Stage 2, and Brad Keselowski was in the top 5 and top 10 all day long. All three Team Penske fours in the top 10, and Kevin Harvick in the top 10 with Stewart Haas racing as well. Eric Almirola, 11th place. Considering this venue will host the championship race, how big is it having a good race today at Phoenix?
Very big, especially getting those notes for the race when we come back in November. Today we saw temperatures, it was around the 60 in the air, but of course, once you hit the track temperature, it was up to 100 degrees. So it's a very hot track for the tire conditions. We saw the slipping and sliding going around in the track. The big thing, of course, when we come back here, those notes that you got from today's race, they're going to be huge, especially if you're up front. If you were in the back, you could always try more things here and there. And especially I feel a team like Michael McDowell, okay, they didn't have the strongest race here. Well, definitely if they were in a situation where if somehow they pulled the big upset and they were in the Final Four, they could really just look at those notes and try to something really, really different to be competitive. So I think for every team, especially the teams that have a win, this was a very big race. And if you had a good day, it was very helpful.
Yeah, Truex even said it in the post-race press conference there. It's absolutely huge to be able to get a win at Phoenix. And now that Phoenix is a championship race, to be able to go to Phoenix earlier in the season is something that drivers didn't have when Homestead was a championship race, because Homestead we only go to once a year. So I think if you're a race winner early in the season in particular, it's huge because you don't really have to worry about the playoffs. Although, as I say that, now we got 5 winners in 5 races. So you have to start wondering if we're going to have a lot of winners this season. But I think for Truex, you've got to really be grateful that you had a good run today and even got the win. I think it's going to be a huge advantage when they come back if he finds himself in a championship 4 position.
Yes, it's definitely going to be a huge advantage, especially for all the teams that did well today at Phoenix. And looking at the results, you can kind of get a good picture if these drivers are in contention to win the championship in the championship 4. Like, are these going to be the drivers that could definitely go out there and win? And also, one thing to point out is still early in the season, and these teams are going to have a lot of time between now and the next time we come back to Phoenix to develop their cars and see what they can improve on. And as the season goes on, it's going to be interesting to see. Are the same teams that perform well today, are they still going to be the main contenders up front, or are they, or as the season goes on, is somebody going to jump ahead of them in terms of how competitive they are? It's definitely going to be something to watch as the season progresses. And here is Joey Logano expressing his surprise about Martin Truex Jr. on the final restart.
The bottom, because I've chose the bottom every time I've been the leader, and it's worked every single time. It was I was batting 1,000 on the bottom the last, I don't know, 2 years here, and was kind of actually surprised that Truex was still out there. I felt like I created enough distance down there on the bottom shortcut in the dog leg that typically I can have someone at my quarter to where I can control them. And I went down in the corner, I'm like, gosh, he's still door to door with me. So their car really accelerated really well, surprisingly well. I didn't see that one coming. So they just had a fast car, all the way through. They had a fast car from the get-go. So once they tuned it in at the end of the second stage, that 19 car was lights out. So I don't need, to be honest with you, Bob, I'm not sure. Even if we got in front of them in that last restart, I'm not sure I've been able to hold them off or not. It would have been a hell of a battle, but he probably would have got me eventually.
All the finishers were with Gibbs, Hendricks, or Team Penske, plus Kevin Harvick from Stewart Haas. Now, all of them, of course, were there. We saw Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch. Bowman still came home 13th place after hitting the outside wall on turn 2. Kyle Busch, late spin, finished 25th. Not enough time to come back towards the front. Busch and Bowman are both essentially in the same level, or do you think they're a little bit behind their teammates, especially the ones that already got a win so far this year?
Oh, Joe, I definitely think that Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman might be just a little bit behind their teammates right now. And good thing is early on in the season, as I mentioned before the Joey Logano video appeared, that there's going to be a lot of time between now and Phoenix next time, or just or just throughout the rest of the season. Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman, I'm sure that they're going to figure it out as time moves on, and we're going to see them catch up to their teammates who are just a tad bit ahead at the moment.
Yeah, like I would be very surprised, Kyle Busch, with how long of a streak he has going of getting at least one win in a season. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't find a way to get to victory lane at least a couple of times this year. And Alex Bowman in particular, he's got a couple of career wins with Hendrick. Hendrick have looked very fast this year. You got to remember we're only 5 races in. It's still pretty early. You can't expect every car on a 4-car team to have a victory just 5 races into the year. So I think both of them, Bowman had a nice recovery today to get back to 13th. I don't know if they need to hit the panic button just yet.
I would agree, especially with Bowman. Don't need to hit the panic button. Having that damage, coming back 13th place, I think that's a really good indication that they are a good, strong team and definitely a contender. Now, one driver we saw up front towards the day, his day was a little bit ruined with pit strategy, was Bubba Wallace. Came home essentially 16th place for 23.11. Now, considering some of the bad luck he has faced earlier this year, were you surprised to see the tires, especially after only 7 laps, fall off like they did? And how big is the 16th place finish for that team?
I wasn't surprised to see the tires fall off. I was surprised that 2311 Racing left their driver out of the pits. I thought they totally threw away a top 10 finish and maybe even a top 5 finish. I mean, we saw Bubba Wallace continuing to pick cars off one by one and continue to move up through the field. So if you're a team like 2311, a brand new team that hasn't had a great start to the season, is still kind of trying to find their footing a little bit, I would have just gone on the same strategy as everybody else and found my way into the pits and carried on and probably gotten a top 10 out of it rather than trying to Hail Mary a win on pit strategy with 40 laps to go. If it were under 10 laps to go, maybe I'd understand it. But 40 to go, I know you only had 7 laps on the tires, but I was left scratching my head at the move. I really don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Ben. You hit the nail right on the coffin right there. And if you're a fan of 2311 Racing and Bubba Wallace, I think there's a lot of good and, of course, the bad that we saw that you can take out from today. And some of the good that you can take out from it. We saw Bubba Wallace get all the way up to 7th on pure speed. And we definitely saw the potential of what 2311 Racing can be, especially when everything is going their way, especially considering what many would consider a disappointing start to the 2021 season for that organization. I think them being able to be competitive inside the top 10, that's a huge victory for the team. And I remember in the past, a 16th place finish for Bubba Wallace when he was driving for Richard Petty Motorsports. That was considered a huge victory for Bubba Wallace. And now we're at the point where a 16th place finish is extremely disappointing for Bubba. So, yeah, I didn't really understand that call by crew chief Mike Wheeler to pit with that many laps to go. And as you mentioned, if it was, let's say, 5-10 laps to go, I'd understand that decision. I think Ryan Newman, when he was at RCR, stayed out at Phoenix on older tires, and he was able to hold off the pack and win the race. So if it was only a couple of laps to go and they stayed out, could potentially work in their favor, maybe not. And I know a lot of people criticize Mike Wheeler, the crew chief for Bubba Wallace, for making a call. And I want to read you a tweet that he sent out explaining why they stayed out. And here's what Mike Wheeler said: 7 laps on tires, newest of anyone. P10 out of 22 cars on the lead lap earlier in the race with similar position. It was split who pitted versus stayed out, and no one on tires drove to the lead. We were on the same page to stay. It didn't work out, and yes, my head hurts. And that's what crew chief Mike Wheeler said in response to the criticism.
One of the big things when it comes to this, I recall watching the race and thinking, had there been more vehicles out there that stayed out on older tires, that could probably have helped them. The big thing, they were the only ones out there, and essentially that restart, spin the wheels, it didn't seem like it really went that well, and it just did cost them, I feel, a top 10 finish, especially once it got in the back. Later on, contact with Cole Custer just simply took him out of contention. Now, of course, we're going to be talking more about the NASCAR Cup Series coverage, but first, here is a quick Xfinity Series recap with Kobe.
Looking back at yesterday's NASCAR Xfinity Series race, unfortunately, the streak is over. We didn't get the 5 different winners in 5 races, but we did get our first repeat winner of 2021 with Austin Cindric taking home the checker flag, winning back-to-back races at Phoenix. And if you remember, he won the season finale race last year and claimed the Xfinity title overall. This year's race had a lot of incidents, cautions, breed cautions. That was really the story a lot yesterday. It was a good day for some, while others had a day to forget. Starting with days to forget, JR Motorsports had 3 cars out of the race. Only 1 car finished, and that was the number 7 Chevrolet of Justin Allgaier, who brought it home 8th place, so top 10 finish. So good day for Justin Allgaier. The other 3 teams can't really say the same. Michael Annett had an engine issue that ended his day, while Noah Gragson had an engine let him down. Josh Berry's race came to an abrupt end when he got squeezed up against the wall by Santino Ferrucci and spun out of the next corner and hit the wall. Berry had a willpower-like moment after getting out of the car, giving Ferrucci a double bird Texas salute. But focus on Noah Gragson. He continues to have a rough start to the 2021 season. Outside of a top 5 last weekend at Las Vegas, the other races haven't exactly gone well. 32nd, 28th, 33rd, and 39th yesterday at Phoenix. Also, he failed to qualify for the Daytona 500 with Beard Motorsports. How will he recover from such a disappointing start to the season? Frustration must be building up at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a question that the entire junior motorsports team really has to ask themselves. Even their 1 car that did finish the Xfinity race this weekend, Justin Allgaier, was running second with just a couple of laps left and ended up hitting the wall and fading to the back end of a top 10 there. Noah Gragson has shown speed this year. Obviously should have won Homestead had it not been for the issue he had late in the race. Had a top 5 at Las Vegas and looked to be in the mix this weekend as well before his engine let him down. So it's got to be frustrating, but I'm sure they're going to bounce back at some point, and it's got to be inevitable that their cars are going to be good enough that they'll be able to have a couple of good runs coming weeks.
Yeah, I think the frustration has to be getting higher and higher, but definitely they can't let that take over their emotions. They have to still race by race come in. They know they got fast vehicles. Homestead, I mean, they were so close to that win. It could have been a totally different story if they have gotten that win. We'll be talking more about their inconsistency, but it's just a matter of time that I feel that they're going to eventually get through that win and secure their spot in the playoff for the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Joe. I think it's just a matter of time. I think Noah Gragson, that car is just so fast. It's gonna make it into the playoffs without any issues. I definitely think we're gonna see him in victory lane at some point. Just have to get over this little hump of bad luck and inconsistency. And before we know it, Noah Gragson is gonna be in victory lane. I'm sure JR Motorsports as a whole will begin to improve. Yeah, that they're already a powerhouse organization. It's just things haven't really gone their way so far this season. And another driver who had a disappointing finish was defending race winner Brandon Jones. Late in the race, Jones was having a great run until he got wiped out by AJ Allmendinger, and Jones ended up finishing 33rd. Daniel Hemrick and Justin Haley were in contention late until they got up into the wall, both falling outside the top 20. And people are continuing to wonder, when is Daniel Hemrick finally going to get that win? Hemrick looked really strong once again at Phoenix, but it wasn't meant to be. Yeah, and we're going to keep asking the question, when is Daniel Hemrick finally going to get that first win in the NASCAR National Series? And want to give a shout out to 2 underdog competitors finishing inside the top 10, with Brandon Brown finished 3rd place for Brandon Built Motorsports behind Ty Gibbs, who finished 2nd. Tied with Ty Gibbs, he won his Xfinity debut at the Daytona Road Course, and he finished 2nd in his 2nd ever NASCAR Xfinity Series race. So it looks like once Ty Gibbs is running full time in the Xfinity Series, he's definitely going to be a threat for the title. And Bailey Curry, give a shout out to him as well, finishing 2nd in Mike Harmon Racing's number 74. And definitely strong result by those teams. It must feel like a huge win for Brandon Brown and Bailey Curry with Mike Harmon. And here are the top 3 finishers telling Bob Parkers from Fox Sports about the race.
And honest, I didn't really know what to envision. I just knew that kind of being on the bottom, especially here at Phoenix, how it fans out so far. You can go way below the yellow line through turns 1 and 2. You kind of control your own fate down there rather than running the top and hoping the people on the bottom can hold on to it. And I think seeing, people that weren't able to hold the bottom kind of bottleneck the top and caused a big incident where we were just able to pounce on it. So envisioning a third, I don't know, but really and truly, I was looking at the back of the leader like, man, that would be great to get up there.
I just kind of thought to myself, what would Bob do? And I did that. No, I'm just kidding. The 10 had me, I got to go back and look at it, but I think I was jacked up pretty good there, even though my restarts were terrible in general. That's something I got to work on. And he kind of dove the inside. And then just threw it in there. And at that point, I had to just check up because I know I was going to get drove in the fence. But I just kind of let him go up there and wipe everybody out. And I just crossed him back over, kind of avoided all guy there at the end off of turn 2 and just kept digging from there. I was focused on the 22 kind of get to him. I just didn't have enough time. I feel like we were closing on him pretty good. I just feel like we got too tight in dirty air, but the farther we got up kind of in clean air when I was kind of by myself there, I kind of felt the clean air for the first time the whole day and drove pretty good.
Yeah, after we came in I'll tell you exactly, after we came in for our last set of tires, there's still 70 laps to go. So kind of anticipating a long run there. And I think we made the wrong adjustments and it put us on the splitter. And I was on the splitter for the first 5 laps of a run. And that made the car pretty difficult to drive. That's something that we usually don't have to fight on the Xfinity side. But when you got these types of tires on this type of track, low air, it makes that really easy. So I wasn't expecting to have to deal with that. I had to deal with that on that final restart. And, I thought it was going to get better with age on tires and actually got worse with age on tires. So I was actually quite glad to have a buffer there for the last 2 laps. So I think that definitely played out in our favor. But definitely nice to be able to find the limit of where something like that is and be able to bring the notebook a little thicker next time we come here.
Yeah, and Austin Singer answered Bob's question about the PJ1 on the track playing a role in the on-track product. And here's my question for you two. Based on what we saw this weekend, did the traction compound play any significant role in the Xfinity or the Cup race?
It seemed like today, especially since we had the warmer temperatures, the compound, that traction compound that we saw there, it did play a factor where we were seeing drivers using that. Still, the drivers going all the way down to below the yellow line towards the apron, sliding on up. We saw that being a big factor as well, too, when it came to the passing. But definitely added another element on having the traction compound there. Is it something where we'll see in just about more and more races? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think it did play a role, especially in today's race with the warmer temperatures.
The traction compound to me, the PJ1 is something like we were talking about last week, the 1.5 mile package. If you can have cars running wide open, that's something that I'm kind of opposed to just in principle, even when it does put on the occasional good race. So today in particular, I thought the race was average. It did kind of add a little bit of an element, particularly on the restarts. But when I think of Phoenix in particular, I think NASCAR really had a really good track with the old Phoenix configuration. Even before they moved the start-finish line the most recent time, ever since they got rid of the grass on the backstretch and added that massive shortcut, the track just hasn't been the same to me. So I personally miss the old Phoenix, and I wish that we could get to a point where we could let the racing kind of speak for itself and not have to worry about gimmicks like PJ1 or traction compound or whatever you want to call it to try to aid in putting on a better show for the fans.
And I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time we're discussing the PJ1 this season, or as Joey Logano called it yesterday in the Xfinity booth, the awesome sauce. And I'm not really sure that everybody considers it the awesome sauce. And now returning back to the Cup Series, we saw all the big teams competing up front as always. Here's Jeff Luck from The Athletic asking Denny Hamlin about coming back with the same package and all of the big teams running up front with JGR, Hendrick, and Team Penske.
We ran, most of the experienced guys, the guys that have been around for 4+ years, ran this whole package in 2017. So if you've got less experience than that, this is kind of a new thing for you. Other than we cut the spoilers off on the short track last year. So I agree with Joey. It's just you kind of build a notebook on it. You understand how to manipulate the car when it's not handling perfectly. You can move your line around and change some things. That's stuff that takes experience. I think that experience in this sport is just so underrated, simply because you see so many things. You know, we've all been through tire changes, car changes, aerodynamic changes, track changes that, you know, we're ahead of the game, I guess you could say, especially now that we have no practice. I mean, it lends itself even more to experience. So I definitely agree with that take.
Now, of course, next week we go to Atlanta Motor Speedway, the second 1.5 mile tri-oval of the season. We've seen drivers like Christopher Bell, William Byron, they are improving their game week after week. And of course, they already have wins. Larson, Truex, they both have a win each. Coming into Atlanta, out of the 5 race winners so far, who is looking the best for Atlanta?
If I had to pick one of the drivers who have already won this season, I definitely have to go with Kyle Larson because, especially with the character of the track in Atlanta, you know, worn out surface, tire management, it just seems like a Kyle Larson type of race.
I would say Larson or his Hendrick teammate, William Byron. I'm going to pick with 2 guys that have won on 1.5 mile tracks already this year of our winners, and it's the Hendrick teammates. And I think, Kobe, you're absolutely right. If I had to pick even one just between the 2 of them, I'd go with Larson as well.
Those are definitely 2 of the names I think a lot of people will be looking at when it comes to winning. Now, of course, the last race winner at Atlanta, that was not Brad Keselowski or Kevin Harvick. You got to go back to 2016, Jimmy Johnson. So it'll be really interesting to see if somebody else could break up the winning streak of Keselowski or Harvick. Keselowski, 4th today. Kevin Harvick, 6th place today. What are some of the challenges that Atlanta present, especially since we have a much older surface at that track?
Well, I think that's it, Joe. I think the older surface is probably the biggest challenge out of all of them. That's what Atlanta's most known for. And I think if it weren't so ingrained into the character of a track and what we think of a track, Atlanta probably would have been repaved by now. But it seems to put on a decent show more often than not when we go there, and drivers don't want to repave it just yet. So here we are. And, you know, I think if you're a team like Bubba Wallace, what happened to them today, 7 laps on your tires, even, you know, just 2 or 3 laps on your tires, I think you've got to consider coming down to pit road and putting 4 fresh tires on if you can at any point in the race, just because of how massive the fall off is with how worn out the surface is of Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's always been a fun track, multiple grooves, worn out surface, tire management. Atlanta certainly one of the better 1.5 mile tracks on the schedule, in my opinion. But Homestead, it will always be number 1 to me. But yeah, but definitely there's going to be a lot of challenges facing the teams, and I can't help but wonder how more amazing would this be if we had 750 horsepower and low downforce instead of the high downforce package at Atlanta. I think the racing would be way better.
I would have to agree with you. It looks like Dan as well agree.
Totally agree. Yep.
Definitely, I think it would be something the fans will be wanting to see that someday, and we'll see what happens, especially once we have that new car. Now, that, of course, leads us to our one shining moment from the Grid Network. Kobe, starting with you, what is your one shining moment from the weekend?
Well, from the weekend, I'm going to go with something that happened in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Top 5 finish, best group finish ever for Brandon Brown and Brandon-Built Motorsports. I saw online where the team Brandon-Built Motorsports had lost a lot of money because of the pandemic in the last year, and then working hard to try to get their program to be more competitive, and especially everything that happened with Brandon Brown's dad. It's just like a real feel good moment to see that team run extremely well and be able to take home a top 5 finish in the end. And Brandon did mention how awesome it was being able to take the fight to JR Motorsports, a team that he has a lot of respect for, with, you know, co-owners Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt.
Well, Kobe, you stole mine. So I'm going to have to think quickly here, but I think I'll go with Ty Gibbs, another top 5 finisher in the Xfinity race, and a guy who, you know, I've just been so impressed with him. You know, he's gotten a lot of hype from the media and from Fox in particular, but I think a lot of it's been warranted and deserved. I think he's proven that, going out and getting the win on debut of a Daytona road course, and now finishing second and looking like maybe if he had one more lap, he might have been able to go 2 for 2. So I got to think the rest of the Xfinity field, once Ty Gibbs makes a jump full time, they're going to have to be worried, because I think Ty Gibbs is going to jump right in and be a championship contender right away.
When it comes to the one shining moment, I'm thinking he didn't get the win, but he definitely showed potential to get that win this year. Ryan Blaney, he got the stage 1 victory. That's big momentum. Yeah, the second half of the race didn't exactly go his way, but still a top 10 finish, 2 in a row, considering the bad luck start he had. Definitely a big moment for him. Now we encourage everyone to be sure to invest in the Grid Network. Join our Patreon page, just like Colin, helping us stay on the air throughout 2001. But special thank you to all our YouTube and Twitter followers, especially this week. We're up to 157 subscribers. Be sure to follow the Grid World Motorsport League at grid_WML. Tomorrow, new Grid World Motorsport League ranking for the 4th week. And we encourage everyone, get your furry family member goodies from Pablo's. 10% discount if you're a Grid Network viewer. That's on anything from dog leashes, clothing, and accessories of dogs of all sizes. 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescue dogs, a great cause that we care about. Wednesday, Grid tonight, 6:30 p.m. Thursday, women racing to win. Friday, definitely we're going to be posting our pick a winner, so be sure to share your pick winners because we're going to have supercars, so we've got multiple chances to get on the pick a winner board. And of course, Saturday, Grid Life pre-race, where we're going to preview the supercars. We're going to have Ann with us, and a special Saturday pre-race for the IMSA Sebring 12 hours. So definitely a big weekend for the Grid Network. Be sure to like and subscribe, not miss any of our programs. For Ben Schneider, Cody Lambus from the Podium Finish, I'm Joe Samdiego. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time. Joe Samdiego here. Want to invite you to go check out Pablo's. Pablo's is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbless.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.